Good evening and welcome to our Monday, October 21st Committee of Adjustment meeting. Move to call to open, mover and a seconder, moved by Councillor Bougie, second by Councillor Jaworski, that we open the meeting at the call of the chair at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? Carried. Confirmation of the agenda. Are there any changes or amendments to the agenda?
No, Chair.
A mover and a second to approve the agenda as presented. Moved by Councillor Jaworski, second by Deputy Mayor Lang, that we approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor? Carried. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Approval of previous minutes. Were there any errors or omissions noted? Okay, seeing none. A mover and a seconder to moved by Deputy Mayor Lang, seconded by Councillor Bougie, that we accept the previous meetings of October 7th meeting as presented. All those in favor? Carried. We'll move into new business and reports. A 2024 Lamarche Wilson Architectural Design Incorporated. Mr. Irwin.
Thank you, Chair. I'll start with some required wording under Section 44 of the Ontario Planning Act, that this is a hearing under Section 44 of the Ontario Planning Act, and any person may attend this hearing and or make written or verbal representation, either in support of or in opposition to the proposed minor variance, if a person, the applicant, or the public body does not make oral or written submissions at this hearing before the minor variance is decided upon, their comments will not be considered by the Committee of Adjustment. Only the applicant, the municipality, the Minister of Municipal Affairs, or certain public bodies may appeal the decision of the minor variance of the Committee of Adjustment to the Ontario Land Tribunal, known as the OLT, within 20 days of the decision. Please note that the committee members have reviewed the application along with any written submissions received in support or in opposition prior to this hearing. And in addition, we'll hear today oral submissions from any interested parties. For A 2024, the subject property is legally described as Lot 13 on Plan 14M10 in the geographic township of Charlottenburg, now in the township of South Glengarry, in the county of Glengarry, located at 6880 Craig Road, and is approximately 0.44 acres in area, and can be seen highlighted in black here down at the very end of the south side of Craig Road. The owner is proposing to erect a retaining wall along a portion of the west interior side lot line. The following relief from zoning bylaw 39 is requested to reduce the required 1 meter setback for a retaining wall from any lot line to 0 meters to the west interior side lot line of the subject property. Here's a zoomed out version of the entire site plan, with north being the right side and the water on the left side. Zoomed in here a little bit, you can see along the top of the drawing on the west side that thicker line would be the proposed retaining wall. And then these were some site photos taken last Friday. So this would be standing from Craig Road looking down at the existing development, or the ongoing development, I should say. And then this would be the west property line going down this vegetative strip. This would be closer down to the water. These property line dividing with the neighboring property along the water. And then this would be facing up towards Craig Road from the water. Step back a little bit. And the property is designated rural district in the SDNG official plan and zoned limited service residential 1 in the township zoning bylaw. And in the opinion of planning staff, the proposed variance is consistent with the intent of the SDNG County's official plan and the township zoning bylaw. Here's a zoning map showing the limited service residential zoning in the bright yellow, surrounded by estate residential further east, residential 1 to the west, and rural to the north, highlighting that it's primarily all a very low density residential area. The application was circulated to all abutting property owners within 60 meters and applicable municipal staff. We received one verbal comment over the phone from Andrew Leslie McKay, a co-owner of 6878 Craig Road. During the phone call, they've raised concerns over impacts to property values and the proposed retaining wall setback, and the design philosophy of not working within the existing guidelines. One written comment was also received from Angus and Hugh Craig. That was received earlier today, so unfortunately we weren't able to provide that in time, but they've just inquired about the impact of to the ditch on the east side of the lot and the impact of a septic system on surface runoff. Given that that's not directly tied to the committee's decision here, they were satisfied with the information that I provided earlier today regarding the requirements for a grading and drainage plan as part of a building permit. The application was also circulated to the RCA, who've confirmed that the proposed retaining wall is beyond the regulated area, and they have no comments on the proposed variance, and the minor variance is being recommended to be approved by our planner, Joanne Haley. And I will pass it back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, and I procedurally forgot that Councillor McDonnell did send his regrets, so just acknowledge that he would have liked to be here, but they had some family matters to attend to. Before we get into the public, I'd like just to make mention that if there are questions or comments of the public, that we talk in specific two items on this, so if the Committee of Adjustment may not address your entire concerns, and I might have to procedurally interrupt you, and I know sometimes that's not favorable, but we have to stick to the matter at hand. Additionally, we can direct further comments to administration for after the meeting or tomorrow to answer, just in case you don't get a full answer tonight if there's any opposition. So seeing that, is there any further information from the proposed or the applicant to further or that you want to add? So yeah, press the gray button,
There
it goes
we
red, and bring it, speak fairly
Can you hear me?
closely.
All right. Yeah, so thank you all for being here today. I just want to clarify that, of course, it's a little bit of deja vu since we've applied for one more recently with respect to the similar application. The reason, as you are all aware, is that the site in itself is quite narrow. There's multiple sites on this plan of subdivision, which was granted, I don't recall the year of, but further back. Another additional item to consider with respect to the particular design of this orientation is because of, firstly, the septic system would be towards the north, of course, as well as there is a hydro easement about 3 meters on the east side too as well, which again makes the lot a lot narrower than the other lots adjacent to it. And thirdly, the RRCA does require a specific laneway dimension, let's call it, for shoreline repairs as needed. So we're really, really limited in terms of the location of this and the proposed setback or the required setback for the retaining wall just didn't work with the current driveway location as is. So that's why we're asking for the relief. In addition, as the photos were shown, the lot in itself isn't graded right now. But based on the approved subdivision, plan of subdivision and grading plan, we have to raise that grade quite significantly, roughly about 2 meters. So it'd be very, very difficult to appropriately grade the sides of these properties in any case. So what the retaining wall is doing is actually diverting the water to meet the requirements of the grading plan in any case.
Fighting a sneeze there. Are there any questions of the members of the committee? Are there any comments from the public? If so, please, you can step up to the lectern, and again, it is, or the podium, and it would be gray button and then red light once you know it's on. We'll go to Stephanie, and then, okay, please proceed. So it's, yeah, gray button, and you'll see the red light turn on once you're there, and then once you want it to be off.
Hello, I am Andrew Mackay, a co-owner at the neighboring property to the west of Mars and Lynn. And yeah, I mean, our family's been there for 5 generations. On Stonehouse Point, it seems like around 120 years. So our desire is to renovate our humble cottage with very minimal intervention. So it seems like we're going to be having 2-meter retaining walls touching either side, which is somewhat shocking. So if I have any say, I would like them to be as far as possible. It's not clear. I'm here partly to learn what these, what our neighbors need for their design, to learn how these rules came about. The 1-meter setback, it seems like for this development is in question. So there seems to be numerous applicants for this same minor variance. Maybe it's me that needs to learn that this is part of the drainage plan and I didn't get the memo. But it seems like we have the right to renovate our cottage and have minimal intervention to our grade. And so there's a problem with the development plan as it stands if we are left in a little trench and everyone else is 2 meters high on the other side of us. So I would like to learn a bit more, and the retaining walls as far as possible. If I have a say, if there's a choice, I would love for them to be as far as possible. I'm here to learn whether, in fact, that is a choice or whether it's just, you know, how did this come about? That's all. So, thank you.
Is it possible, I forgot to ask, you did say the adjacent property, could you give your civic number? I'm supposed to ask for your civic address as well as your name, but you've given your name,
Yeah,
just the civic?
6878.
Okay, thank you. Sorry that I forgot that. Ms. Haley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nice to meet you, Mr. Mackay. And I believe I worked with all the property owners several years ago when you started the process of changing your property that was 13 cottages located on leased land, resulting in individually owned parcels of property. And in order to achieve that, your group of ownership has gone through both a plan of subdivision and common elements condominium that would allow you to individually own your lots. In the presentation that was provided to you this evening, you'll see that the lots are very narrow. Actually, I believe Mr. Wilson also alluded to that, and it makes it difficult for redevelopment. In the time that I worked with the property owners to go through the development proposal, it was always understood that each individual property would have the right to redevelop their land when they were ready and if they were ready. So when you indicated that you have the right to maintain your existing cottage and continue enjoying that cottage, that's certainly your right. And then other individuals or other owners have chosen to rebuild. When they've chosen to rebuild, they're obligated to conform to the approved grading and drainage plan that was part of that plan of subdivision. Ideally, in the perfect world, every lot would have been redeveloped at the same time. That would have brought everyone to the same proposed elevation to make it work. And obviously, that's not what happened, and I don't think that was a reality to expect that to happen, because everyone will have plans at different stages of their goals or their lives, what have you, or may even not redevelop. We didn't anticipate that retaining walls would be required in some instances, and I think you mentioned that we've done a few applications to that effect so far. This would be the third request to have a retaining wall located on the property line. We had a request previously for a few lots away from this one that went to a 0 meter setback that was approved, and we did another one that went to a 0.15 meter setback, which I believe is approximately about 5 inches. I'm not an engineer, but my understanding in working with engineers and the designers that depending on how the style of house that's being proposed, the size of the home that's being proposed, the size of the septic system, also the Region Conservation Authority requiring as a 6 meter side yard waterfront access or as wide as possible, it's becoming very difficult for the redesign of these properties to fit within a very narrow lot. And so in your particular case, if you choose to continue to enjoy the cottage the way that it was constructed at the existing elevation, you are going to see a difference in grade between proposed developments and existing developments. So that's basically how this has come about. Perhaps you were involved in that subdivision design process. I apologize, I don't remember every property owner that I worked with at that time, but it was my understanding that all property owners were on board and agreed to the design and the approved grading and drainage plan. That being said, it doesn't necessarily mean that everyone would be requesting a retaining wall and everyone would be requesting a retaining wall at a 0 meter setback. So I do, I appreciate your comments. So hopefully that answers your question. I'll turn it back to you, and maybe Mr. Wilson would rather add something further to what I just indicated based on the design that he's completed. Thank you.
Does that satisfy your question, or would you like a follow-up, just to?
I mean, are you the designer?
Yes, sorry.
So, I mean, architecture that inspires me works with the surroundings. And it seems to me that thickened edge slab on grade with perimeter insulation could have required far less fill. Is that correct?
Potentially, but in fact, you've seen the property, of
Yeah.
course. So the property in itself is, as you can see, is extremely low based on the approved grading plan. As I mentioned, it's roughly at the middle, 2 meters less existing than what we'd have to propose to do. As you can see, what we've taken advantage of is actually somewhat of a walkout basement to allow for both the slope to go to the river and to Craig Road. So if it was a slab on grade, as you can see, the ground floor would be at the top there. The fill would be pretty astronomical in any case. So this approach has reduced the amount of fill as much as possible, of course, as to abide by the grading plan in any case. So that's what we're working with in any sense. That's what we have to use. So hopefully that answered your question.
It's close enough. I mean, I welcome all the changes.
All right, thank you. And there was a question from Councillor Jaworski, I believe.
You, through you, Mayor McDonald. I think it's mostly a question to staff, although perhaps Mr. Wilson could shed some light. So as I understand, this is the approved plan for the subdivision, and as you mentioned, Ms. Haley, like all the sites are not being redeveloped all at the same time. So I was hoping you could speak a bit to what would be the impact to the neighboring property here. Like, are we creating a situation? There was comments made about one property becoming sort of drainage for the rest. I just want to see are we in a situation where because someone hasn't redeveloped that they're going to be negatively impacted?
So through you, Mr. Chair, my understanding is that with the way that the grading plan that's been proposed, both for this specific dwelling as well as for the overall plan of subdivision, that you're going to have, I believe, a split grade where some of the water is going to be diverted to the St. Lawrence River to the south, and some of it's going to go towards Craig Road. And again, I'll ask Mr. Wilson if to certainly interrupt if I'm saying anything incorrectly. With a retaining wall, that retaining wall is going to assist in retaining the soil because of the amount of fill that's brought in. If the lots were wider and depending on, again, the location of the driveway and the septic, perhaps there could have been maybe more space to gradually slope it, and then you would have swales. But I understand in reading this plan that there shouldn't be water impacting the direct or the abutting property owner, because if it's graded properly according to the plan, it'll go basically north towards the road and south towards the river. The directions are not perfect in that location because the road, where County Road 2 is east-west, so I'm saying north and south just to keep it more simple. But again, I would encourage Mr. Wilson to add to that or correct me if I've interpreted that plan incorrectly.
No, I think you've interpreted correctly. Theoretically, there is a high peak or a line that is going up and down on the page, so that would be east and west. And essentially what we're doing is diverting the water to both Craig Road and the St. Lawrence River. If that retaining wall wasn't in place, then of course the grade would drastically slope towards the neighbors. So essentially it's carrying that wall. So in theory, what it's actually doing is reducing the impact that if the retaining wall wasn't there.
Deputy Mayor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, that was similar to what I was going to, I just wanted to make sure that there's no chance of water from this built-up lot going over the retaining wall onto the neighbor's property, because it would be a little bit, make you a little nervous if you're 2 feet, likely 5 feet lower, than the neighboring property on each side, and you didn't want all that water in your property. So as long as it can't go over the retaining wall, then I don't have too much objection. And the other thing I wanted to ask is that if the neighbor at some point decides that he's going to redevelop his property and wants to build it up, does he have to construct a retaining wall, or could he use the side of that wall?
So to answer your first question, the idea is, again, to drain to Craig Road and to the water and not try to create that waterfall, although maybe a nice water feature. So the water will be diverted away from the retaining wall, not to the retaining wall and over. The unfortunate thing, and Joanne had mentioned, is that it's all with respect to the sequencing. If it was a new plan of subdivision, new subdivision build, all of the lots would be graded appropriately before they were developed or they were built on. Unfortunately, this isn't the case. So we're having individuals that are somewhat landlocked. The irony behind it is that the current owners are having to construct this retaining wall, so it's more financial burden on them. But when this individual or individuals decide to develop inside, that retaining wall is already there. So they don't have to build any other retaining wall. They simply just need to fill in the grade and they're done, right? So it's again, we're abiding by that grading plan, and you know, the unfortunate thing is that the current owner that's developing has to construct this retaining wall, which may be redundant if the adjacent owner decides to develop.
So I'm just thinking, if we were not to grant the minor variance and the retaining wall had to be moved into the property, and then in the future, the neighbor does the same thing, we're gonna end up with a 5-foot ditch down the middle, like straight up and down, something for kids to fall into, so maybe there is a silver lining, I don't know.
Councillor Bougie? No? Okay. I guess I would then look, if there is interest of the council or committee to get a mover and a second to approve it. Okay, moved by Deputy Mayor Lang, seconded by Councillor Jaworski to approve it as presented. All those in favor? Carried, and there is a caveat. I'll let Mr. Irwin say that.
Thank you. So your minor variance has been approved. So there'll be a 20-day appeal period starting today. Once that appeal period's been expired, should we receive no appeals, then we can move forward with any further review on building permits and get those issued. Oh, Chair, I think we have.
Sorry, I should have queried the audience again. Is it, procedurally, can I come back? Okay, please do. I apologize for being a little, or not seeing the hand up earlier. Again, it's the gray button in front. The red light will come on once it's ready. Thank you, and apologies.
I am going to speak from the vantage point of my 80 years, and I am going to borrow the model from the the Anquahonui Mohawk, on whose territory we are, and invoke their cultural and historical method of looking ahead 7 generations. And I hope that everyone concerned, and thank you, by the way, to the township for having these rules. They are there for a reason. We need to be very, very careful. Everything we do has an impact. And we are not going to be here for 7 generations if these rules, if these sensible ways of looking at things are not adhered to. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I suppose that we have done the moved and seconded. Can we include that comment in the public record just before? And I suppose you don't need to vote on the same thing unless anybody's opinion has changed. Okay, then the motion stands. Thank you, and thank you. We will now move to item A21, 2024, Warner, Lacasse Drafting and Design Incorporated. Mr. Irwin.
Thank you, Chair. I will just skip through the slides back to A21. So for A2124, the subject property is legally described as part of Lot E, Concession 1 Front, being parts 6, 8, and 9 on reference plan 14R 3184 in the geographic township of Charlottenburg, now in the township of South Glengarry in the county of Glengarry, located at 6627 Tree Haven Road, and is approximately 2.17 acres in area. With a slight caveat there, you can see it highlighted in black here. The subject property is functionally an island accessed through, I guess, a land bridge off of the end of Tree Haven Road. So part of that 2 acres that GIS pulled is water. The owner is proposing to construct an attached garage on the west side of the existing single detached dwelling on the subject property, and is seeking the following relief from zoning bylaw 3809 to reduce the required 30-meter watercourse setback down to 12.9 meters to the northern portion of the proposed garage and 17.5 meters to the southern portion of the proposed garage, and to reduce the required 30-meter setback from the PSW boundary to 16.7 meters between the garage and the PSW boundary immediately to the north. Here's a zoomed out and much easier to read zoomed in version, slightly easier to read zoomed in version of the proposed site plan, with the PSW boundary to the north being straight up, and all the variances are highlighted in yellow, and then the orange highlighter just marks some setbacks that already meet the existing standards. And then kind of right in the middle, you can see the dash line for the proposed garage attached to the house. Here's some site photos that were taken on Friday, and just a note for the public consultation side. When I arrived Friday afternoon, the sign had been installed earlier. It was knocked down, so it was reinstalled Friday. Photo would have been taken from Treehaven Road before going down the land bridge, and this would be when you come upon the house. And this would be the side of the house where the proposed garage is proposed. And there we go. Just another angle of that same area. And this would be out, if you were to walk straight ahead in this photo and turn left, this would be over there. And turning around to face the house again where the proposed garage is located, or to be located. And the property is designated rural district in the county official plan and zoned estate residential and floodplain holding in the township zoning bylaw. And in the opinion of the general manager of planning, building, and enforcement, the proposed variance is consistent with the SDNG official plan and township zoning bylaw. And here's a zoning map showing the, you can see an orange, well, it's not super clear visible on the subject property, but the orange would be the floodplain holding zone. The gray is the estate residential zone, and the green all around it is the provincially significant wetlands. The application was circulated to all abutting property owners within 60 meters and applicable municipal staff, and we've not received any written or verbal comments to date. And the application was also circulated to the Raisin Region Conservation Authority, who offered the following recommendation, that the proposed attached garage addition is located outside of the map floodplain and associated hazard. The proposed attached garage is also located in a mapped organic soils hazard, and more information is required to address this hazard, but this can be done through the RSCA permit process. So the RSCA does not object to the minor variance at this time, provided that the following conditions of approval are included. One being that an RSCA permit is obtained for the works proposed to address the organic soils hazard and other applicable RSCA regulations, and that if not already paid, the owner/applicant, that the invoiced fee for the RSCA comments be paid in full. And the minor variance application is being recommended to be conditionally approved by Planner Joanne Haley, subject to the condition that the applicant apply for and obtain a permit from the RSCA's office for the proposed development. And I will pass back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from around committee? Is there anything further you'd like to add before, or we'll go to Councillor Jaworski?
Could you go back to the image that shows which are the variances distance that we're considering? Because I found it a bit difficult to follow. That's it, yeah.
I can't quite read it perfectly from here, but never mind. I can. There's
Yeah,
a
but
much
that's
closer
not
TV.
highlighted
So the far right yellow one is the setback to the PSW is 16.7 meters. One to the left of that is a setback to the top or to the water course, and then the lower yellow one is to the water course as well. The orange ones are to the provincially significant wetland, but they already meet the 30-meter setback, being 42.5 and 50.6 meters, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
All right, would the applicant have any further comments they'd like to add?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I would, just quickly. I just wanted to just reiterate what Max said, that it is non-conforming. It's essentially an island that bottlenecks to the bridge to get to that property. So even a reduced garage size relocated on another area of the property would still have issues in conforming with the setbacks. The existing garage is quite small. It's more the garage size that we would see in an urban subdivision, I would say, where the lots are a lot tighter. So it's more for a small vehicle. The double car garage, although not massive, it certainly fits more with the type of development that is on Treehaven. So it's nothing bigger than what we would normally see for this type of development. And lastly, I just want to mention the purpose of the garage, because I think it's worthwhile mentioning that realistically it's not for a shop or a home business or anything like that. It's just so that both property owners are able to put their vehicles in the wintertime and then enjoy just being able to go inside without having to put the vehicle in tempo, take the tempo down, do it again every year. So essentially that's the purpose of the whole proposed garage. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Lang?
If there's nothing further, I'm happy to move.
Okay, moved by. Yes, the applicant is okay with it being moved with the conditions?
Yes.
So then you're moving it with the conditions from the RRCA? As staff presented, I think it says there's 2 conditions that, there it is right there. So it seems the applicant is okay with, as long as those conditions are filled. So I guess we're approving it pending the conditions. Councilor Jaworski?
Are those conditions able to be met? Or are we approving it with a possibility that they can't meet the conditions?
Mr.
So
Irwin?
through you, Chair, thank you. So the RC will require a permit for the proposed development because it's in that organic soils hazard. As part of that permit, they'll require a geotechnical study to demonstrate that they can safely build on those organic soils.
All right, I'll go ahead and we'll move to approve with conditions, although my logic says that garage is going to be quite a bit smaller than that big house that's already sitting there.
That's fair. Yes, go ahead.
If it is helpful, one of the first steps that the client has done is that they did obtain a soil bearing evaluation from St. Lawrence Testing, just to make sure that we could build there, because it's really an island, just to make sure water's not, 6 inches below ground. So we do have the recommendation from St. Lawrence Testing as to how to proceed with the build.
Councilor Jaworski, you got a comment?
No, I've just, I feel like we often have comments where like the RSA will require blah, 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 like further down the line, and I don't recall there being conditions in the motion. Maybe I'm just starting to forget things, but, okay. So I'm just wondering if, why is this, or what am I missing about it being different?
The most common comment that the RSA will offer is to request that all their fees be paid for their reviews. Generally, we won't include that as a condition because it's not something we can enforce directly. At some point, they'll have to pay the RSA for their comments. But when it's conditions like this, where it'll trigger a geotechnical study to demonstrate compliance with our zoning bylaw for building in organic soils, then it's something that we could, that demonstrates that it will conform to policy better.
Mrs. Haley?
If I could just add to that, Mr. Chair, when we receive inquiries from the public about a minor variance, both Mr. Irwin and I will pre-consult with the Conservation Authority. Probably 99% of the time we engage the applicant with the Conservation Authority, so we're having a joint meeting. There are times where applications get filed, and during a review, they might realize that they want additional information. If that occurs, that's when they'll ask for a condition. So it's something that we could see from time to time, but I would say a majority of the time, we're capturing that information in advance of an application being filed, which is why it's not really common to always see it worded this way. So once they get the application, if they feel they need some additional information or maybe reassurance, they would probably request a condition or word it that way just to be on the safe side.
Are you satisfied, just to make sure, okay. All right, so this was moved by Deputy Mayor Lang, seconded by Councilor Bougie, that we accept this as proposed with conditions. All those in favor? Carried. Mr. Irwin, the caveats?
Thank you. So your minor variance has been conditionally approved. There'll be a 20-day appeal period, and if we don't receive any appeals, once that 20-day appeal period expires, we can move forward with any building permit reviews and complete those. In terms of the condition, it'll be up to the applicant to go ahead and apply for a permit with the RCA and then conduct the required studies for that. If it sounds like you've already got that started though, so that's good.
All right, then the next part of our meeting is, next meeting to be determined. Is there a date, or are we, probably next meeting? Oh, it's still be determined,
Be
okay.
determined.
Excellent. A mover and a seconder for adjournment. Moved by Councillor Bougie, second by Councillor Jaworski, that we adjourn to the call of the chair at 7:05 PM. All those in favor? Carried.